Kaya yoxatinil tekat Johan. Cheesh hati adi. Cheesh uchin khasati. Ye away yan yegi edati tikhwatung. Khosatin áax'w khunkian. Kehas ausiyek. Qaaw. Ye away qane aya has ya yan nalukh. We yaw. Yatakhunach eyak. Dow da you do a sock. Well yan you do a sock away we ass. One qanins we just the cut we ass. Ye away with the qich. Yaw the qich qa away. Heen de away ye has our tea. Qa has to tawasagu. Ya yaw. Ya has a yanatluch adat. Helkaten hasaku adat khoa. Ye awa khoach áax'w we atwas kuku qaku. Shtakat ye wutin we qaq ya guksa away we yaw wutluch. Ya yidat khoa shitka. Shan seed. Gosh chagut aaní. Gosh nas dat. Shqagwe khoa tlek. Gwash yisa tas ashech we tashuyi you do a sago at tashuyi akanach away yaqis daqwada yanuwasla daqwada yanuwasla sha ye slain you do a sago at tsu gwash adat away yeji wone atlain away at ka tekisani akach kaudutzacha Aqa away clash kurte has yakwas we yaw clash has to toa ushka. Konachaway has áax'w that yachsaway. Lisheidí like way. What's that do a saga? Lisheidí aaní. Clash has to toa ushka yis at the way. Ka jidach away áax'w at clash has to toa ushka. At away. Tashatawa ushkul the kata aaní kach. Ya zait klein awa awulshiechen. Tashatawa ushkul. Ya atlein atawe konach as áax'w dat yachsawe ha aaní. Yata tsuchwa ach. Qach daka shuchidach. De khotok aya Héen one. We yanda shani Hasaway qoneye has ya waqayan. Gwash has áax'w. Nischaye gugenkawe o yach has to khusti. Hesh anashay aya gwash de khatka qwana. Hesh anashay away khatka qwana. Ajawe achtwasagu kanachawe akhiti sa akhi. Ya akhliq. Akhladu ish hu away wait ayach. Wujin yuch awul atken, wujin, hu away yuch ewatan, khataya yuch akhwatan, hu away khataya. Gwashqane áax'w khoa. Keshu nashay away gugwana. Qane ay yuch ewatan, khatse achtwasagu yuch akhwatan. Ach kanach khoa yuch ewatan. Shukhwaya yewuhi. áax'w jayek genki áax'w niku. Wanach saya clash to toa ushku ach was achi. Qeqa qoa áax'w. Jayek genki gao yech. Du toasagu du yuchatangi ho achi. Ye awe de khwatak aya Héen one. Ye awe áax'w yisak'w. We atwas kuku has to khande qahyi ayit yewe áax'w has to khande aya at aqa away has to khait yisa ahi jayegu genki yech qeqa has áax'w ha yuchatangi ajoyi in kakhwani gyang tlelqach inachi ide kakhwani tsu wan qanins qo'aaq tuwassaku hayuqatangitade awa atwatua aat. Wan qanins tlalla atinaqa o title qayuqatangi. Hetlwasa o tiqoa. Hetlwasa kakwati. Wan nisawe qonea yuqakwatan qayuhan akhide yuqaqahila aat. Tlangit qinaq. Yewe tlaqunaqaq tuwassaku. Yekakwati yuhan. Hetlwasa ya yidat. Qultisaqiti sa akhi. Ye awe. Qulfush kanaqaq tu da aat. Wan qaninsaq tuwassaku tlaltaqatqa qoaya yuqiwatan. Qul tlek chinka Táax'w Héen wait ayach. Aye haswutian qa chaqte. Qaalqawu, kaseeq, qeuchne, kajuanish, atlein jaqaitla, ya yachtu shaqt. Akhe haswutian atlein kingisi. Mujin yu hasqewut at. Ohan qunaqwe hastu qeit utusa akhi. Ya yidat just chayeku genki oyach. Yuguaya Juan Yuhan. Kachena Shay Yuhan Su. Kakikahi Art. Yahayurkatangi team. Aka Tleshach Tuashku Ayida Eki. Just gook. Kakwada Ayahayurkatangi Renach. Kushtiach Wasa. Chayeku genki kakt dak. Yisene. Eka Shingiturkatangitin, Kaden Gahisene, Eka Kaden Gakwati, Yahayurkatangi Hahakosti. Yayaki, Yakitin, Yachtwasagui, Isatini Yata. Kaichwashatu, we uski Gash Kijin, Kledusha, we has to Katago. Itra, Gashdachadushu, Kanaskadushu, has to Katago. Has to Inkachwanig, where Atkatu Atiwan Kanins, Wushchun Kiyan, Yachyati. Has Aya, lisheidí at, washidu asako at lisheidí at. Yisikuge a shady. Yisikuge dasawe. Yeah, has to kachke na ein áax'w. Gwaintly tsukhutsati, gwaintly yidu asak. Has to say aya uwakaa, dzísk'w, watsíx, jánwu, tawéi. Has away wuchyakhati, wuchkhunich hasati. Gwaintly khat aya jin kachus. Khuts jin kachus. Keitl jin ka khus gwalkiwe. Has gwaintly yidu asako at. Uhan shakhawu. Tleshtekatuhan áax'w tleshtkhosti. Has a shady khudzati. A shady. Ya yagi ka adatki ewa has to ikhwasatu. Ye ewa yakhwaqa. Yata yakh yegach yisene yijintin. Dasa yakhsene yuhansu chushuku at. Aka dasa away yukhakwatan. Ach itchach tuasagu yuhansu yukhaitla at. Yata yakh dzísk'w yenaka dzísk'w. Dzísk'w.
Dzísk'w.
Dzísk'w.
Dzísk'w.
Uwakaa.
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 Watsíx.
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 Jánwu.
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 Tawéi.
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 Qa yasatkawe kautua aaq. Qanaxawe yasatkasak qaltagenaq. Dzísk'w. Uwakaa. Watsíx. Jánwu. Tawéi. Aqa yasatk. Dzísk'w. Uwakaa. Watsíx. Jánwu. Tawéi. Aqaq áax'w hasq áax'w. Dasawe yata. dzísk'w ge?
dzísk'w.
Eso yata.
uwakaa.
Eso yata. Watsíx.
watsíx.
Yata koa.
jánwu.
Yata koa. Tawéi.
tawéi.
Naski a dakka yewuti. Dech a ka dad. Aka awe hastu inka chweniktu. Ya ka ha aaní. Hatlatki kach. Uwakaa. Ha jánwu. Tawéi watsíx dzísk'w. Like dzísk'w. Wan qanins. Héen. Kayaaní. Ka jilqatíní Kayaaní. Dakka a atlein. Atlein a yeyeti. Watsíx tsu. Kash ka dakka aaní. Atlein. Kunakshia de Héen. Kunakshia de Héen. Yidat kwa atlaik. Ya hasu tawéi. Just dakka yewuti. Yat tsu. Kay de Héen khoach. Gwash. Has áax'w. Gwat ksawé. Has to cut a. Has to cut a. Ye away. Gwash. Ye away you do a sock. Do cut a. Dokane aya ye kakwa. Gwash shawat a. Do cut a. Ye away you do a sock. Do kayadi. You do a sock. Kayadi. We shawat tu yeyati. Kayadi. Aka awe dokane sak. Ye away has áax'w. Yes, the cut way dach the sego at katu ati. Gwatkin sawe. Hasut okane aya ye kakwa. Aka just one qanins. Kayadi hasut tawasagu. Gwatlisaku. Ka would do a jack. Ka uwakaa. Ka watsíx. Ka dzísk'w. Shawat just one. Sheech just one qanins. We gwall do cut like kish I jack. One qanins we talk eat. Gwall kish quqas teach we kayadi. Tawéi awe has awa jack sheech we kayadi jánwu has to eat has awa tea. Gwallisaku one qanins we yanda shani has to tawéi klesh ulchin. The kat hatse wakak nuch. Kut khwakik has to saku chadasa. Yeah, that's dementia ka Alzheimer's you do a saku. Has áax'w adat tsu. Ajawe we jánwu tawéi kayadi has uwakaa one qanins. Gunchishach edi sa ahe. Yito agesagu yuke watani aqatlekha khinach yi ide kakunik chaltakata tatat yukhach tata. To agesagu. Okay. Recap. What was I talking about?
should cut. should cut. Yay. All kinds of things.
The cut ye day.
Yay day.
Ye day. So I started off saying I saw that some people I know are pulling up herring eggs, and I don't know that much about it, but sometimes people will cut down a hemlock tree and put the whole tree in the water, pull it up and get the pieces off and cut it. That one's called Da'ah. So Da'ah, D-A-A, period, high tone A-A. So then you could have, oh wait, Da'ah is, no, that's the one on the kelp. How Da'ah is the one on the branches. How Da'ah, Da'ah, Neh Da'ah, you can have that as well. That's the one on the hairy seaweed. I think those are the main kinds. So I was thinking about that, and then I was talking about,
Didn't you go to Chilcat country for hooligan oil before we talked about horns of each?
oh yeah, no, I said they used to spawn all over the place. That's what I heard. They spawned in Skagway, they spawned here, but when people would come and start messing with the tide line, so especially you see old pictures of a lot of communities, like Skagway is a good example, so is Juneau. Like the tide mark used to be way, way, way back, and then they would just construct new land and fill it all in. And then the fish don't come back because they know. They say, well, this is all messed up. Shishtuk. They only want the clean stuff. They don't want any dirty land. So shishtuk can mean someone who's pure, and it can also mean like something that's not really contaminated. So it's a negative version of shituk, which would be spoiled, like spoiled kind of rotten meat or something. So shishtuk is, it's usually made to like talk about someone who's pure. It's kind of been appropriated a little bit by Christianity, talking through Shinge. But we also use it to talk about like organic foods and stuff. We're using shishtuk atchai because it's not, it doesn't have, it's pure, right? But so I was thinking about that, and so we really want to protect those few places that they spawn, which I think is Sitka and Craig. And I don't know if too many other places down by the Nas. I think they're still spawning there. And you might still get little bits here and there, but it's important to protect those areas. And then I started talking about, I was teaching some kids today, and I was thinking about, we do have these concepts of kind of families. Like I saw in some notes, áax'w. So áax'w would be áax, dzísk'w, or sorry, gijuk, shayach, and áax'w. So those are all like the eagle type, the eagle family. So áax is an eagle. Gijuk. I think there's kijuk and gijuk, and I think they might be different. I think kijuk is a golden eagle, gijuk is a mountain hawk, shayach is a falcon, and áax'w is an osprey. And so those are all considered like a family. And so I think about this stuff too, because then you have a bunch of these little weasels, and you can teach them and talk about them in families, like, Da and what are they called? Nukshian and Kuch and Nusk. So those are all a family. Probably Chetchakach and Tsagedi might loosely be in there as well. And so Da is an ermine, Nukshian is a mink, Kuch is a marten, and Nusk is a wolverine. And then Cheshakach and Tsagedi are probably different, right? And so, but I think as you sort of like talk about the knowledge of the language, you can also like increase your knowledge of these families. And so today I was working with kids, and I said, well, these ones we could probably call them lisheidí, which would be the things with horns. And I'll sidetrack here, I didn't say this, but doing language work, I come up with this language assessment, which some of you who've been in this Alaska program, you've gone through these language assessments, and some of you are going to go through these language assessments. And one of them, some of them don't change, you know. It's like, but I'll remember. So if I say, tell me a funny story, you can't tell me the same one you did last time. I expect something different. So that's one of the things. I'll say, tell me something. When we get into the intermediate stuff, I'm like, when we start getting towards the upper levels, I'll say, tell me something funny. And just see if you could tell a joke or a funny story in Lingi, which is pretty fun, right, when you could do that. And someone said, this is their little story. I'll tell it to you in Lingi, I'll tell you in English. Héen Kayaaní watsíx unicorn Lingi. Táax'aa tawéi Táax'aa. Áax'w uwakaa lisheidí. And it was funny. That was really fun. I thought it was very funny. So she said, Héen Kayaaní watsíx unicorn Lingi. Can you understand that? Héen Kayaaní watsíx unicorn Lingi. Héen Kayaaní watsíx unicorn Lingi. You told us what a unicorn is called in Lingi.
But I forgot it.
I forgot it. Tried to talk. I forgot its name. That's why I said because I call it lisheidí. So lisheidí would mean it has horns. So lisheidí is what I was calling just like things with horns, right? There's this family of them. There's dzísk'w, uwakaa, watsíx, tawéi, jánwu. Like those are the ones that are sort of in our area. So I started doing this thing with my kids, then I started doing the same thing in the nest, and then I taught this. I was teaching some kids today, and that's hard teaching kids. Teachers should make a lot of money because that's hard. Kids are talking, wiggling, and I'm just like, I had to deal with this stuff on a regular basis. I was like, we started this stuff, and we started with Lingi toddler time, and one time our teacher couldn't make it. So someone said, hey, Héen, teach the kids. These are like little toddlers. So I'm firing up the projector and like, what are you doing? I was like, well, I want to teach them what classifier is. Like, no. You got to do activities with them. So I'm comfortable with my role teaching the teachers who can teach the kids. But I said have fun with them, and we invent little games and stuff they do with my kids. And so this one I would just tell them, okay, whatever I do with my hands, you do the same thing. Whatever I say, you say. And then we did that thing and say dzísk'w, uwakaa, watsíx, jánwu, tawéi. And we just do them over and over and over and over. And then I do them fast and then slow, and then just have kind of fun with them. And then, I'll make a classifier song. That sounds great. Okay, we're gonna do a classifier today, so you can help me compose the song. And so then after we did them a whole bunch of times, I said, okay, I'm gonna do the hand thing, and you tell me the Lingi name. And so I go like this, and they go, moose. And I was like, no, Lingi. And so, but it's interesting because I just talked to these little kids about like why our language is important and how our elders got abused when they're little for speaking the language. So I was trying to be really nice, to just say. And but anyways, it was fun. So that's what I was talking about. And then I said, of those 5, there's two of them that live near the saltwater, and that's uwakaa and jánwu. The other three live in the inland, although the moose does come around dzísk'w, well, dzísk'w, you don't really see them, dzísk'w, and up the Táax'aa as well. So I think that's everything I talked about. Thoughts, questions?
The shawak part, and it was like pregnant and feeding you.
Yeah, thank goodness, sheesh. So you guys remember everything that I forget. It's wonderful. So dukatka'aa is the way you say someone is pregnant in Tlingit. And it's really interesting because like dukatka'aa literally means it's sitting on her. That's how you talk about being pregnant. And there's other ways to say it as well, but that's the most common way. It's sort of one of these things that has a bit of a, every language does this, where sometimes there's a way to talk around a few things.
That is exactly what late pregnancy feels like.
Right? And so I started talking because one time I heard this, was that with the tawéi. So in Tlingit, like it's pretty well known, like even we were talking about this today with halibut, like you're trying to get the medium-sized halibut because you want to get the males. You're always going after the males, like get the male deer, get the male, get the moose, it's always the males because the females carry the babies. It was pretty funny because on search, I remember I was on the search board in the early 2000s, and they started this program called the Wise Woman Program. And it was great because it takes women who are over 40 and really does a lot of just kind of life coaching and how to stay healthy as you sort of age. And wonderful program, really pushing for being active and lots of rewards for diet things and being active and stuff. And I remember there's a board member on there named Leonard Cato, who's really great. He's such a good person. And he would make this really impassioned speech about you need something for the men as well, because men don't take care of themselves. They're usually worse at this stuff. And so that's a bit of a stereotype, but there's some truth to that. And he says men who are over 40, they need to be checking in, they need to be doing stuff, they need to stay active, they need to change their diets if they eat an awful lot of greasy food or fast food. And he would make these but then he would always end it with a joke. And I feel like that's why the program never happened. So he'd go on, he'd like really make this wonderful speech about men's health. And he'd say, don't just shoot the bucks. We'd all laugh. And then he'd say, we call it the Wise Guy Program. So maybe we should start the Wise Guy Program, just out of memory for Leonard Cato. But anyways, I was talking about this because I had heard this in English and I wanted to be able to talk about it in Tlingit. I do this stuff all the time. Someone will tell me something in English, or I'll see something and I'll say, I don't know how to say that in Tlingit. I want to be able to say that. So what I was talking about is for the elders, like Tlingit people knew when everything had their babies. They just knew the lifestyles of everything around them. They knew when the bears were going to have them. They knew everything. They knew all this stuff, right? Because they lived with these things for so long, and just the language has lots of detailed information about these things, which I think, I'm guessing if you just took your average high school graduate and you said, okay, here's how you pass high school. You have to correctly identify the ermine, the mink, the marten, and the wolverine. And if you get them all, you can graduate. Like, I don't know how many students would be able to do that, just because I don't know if we're out on the land anymore, right? And so I just think this knowledge, it was just there, right? And so they wouldn't shoot females usually. And they especially wouldn't shoot one if they could see that it was obviously pregnant. However, usually once a year, they would go and shoot a pregnant sheep. And they would do this, I think, with seal as well. And they would take the unborn one, not all the time, and they would feed it to their elders because they knew about dementia and Alzheimer's and things that can affect your brain as you get older, which is why I think there was lots of interaction with the elders. You were always talking with them and getting them to talk to you. So one was just keeping them trying to be interactive with them. But then also feeding them this was a special dietary thing, and it would help stave off some of that stuff. It's pretty wild.
Fetus would be very rich in growth hormones.
Yeah, and so and the person who was telling me about it, he was talking about like stem cells and stuff, and like what did the old people know like long time ago? Because it's a practice I think is not done very often. They still do it in Carcross, because that's where they were telling me about it. They said they were sending out hunters to go find one for the elders.
How do they deal with hunting regulations?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because that's always an interesting sort of thing in terms of, like if you were to do that here, like you'd be hunting out of season. And so I didn't ask them that. I think they just go because, but it would be interesting to sort of, because some of those things you can get exemptions, like hunting out of season for ceremonies or for other things. Or I think when there was a real, we hit this stage where there was a real supply chain issue and food wasn't getting to community, like you'd go to the store here and like there's just nothing for vegetables and stuff. And you go to the rural communities and it was worse. And so some of the communities were getting out of season permits because there was no food. And there was just no options. And so, yeah, that's a good question, whether you sort of be preemptive and go for the permits or just deal with it if it happens. Just go for it. I don't have a recommendation.
Wise Woman's going good still. We're pushing that hard. And then Chilkut, my friend was getting a knee surgery, and he was talking about supplements, and I told him the different ones. And then omega-3, we talked about that, and he's like, I got seal oil. Should I drink that? Like, it'll help lubricate your knee and all that. Okay, so he did got his surgery. After the surgery, the doctor said, what was that brown stuff leaking out of your knee? And then said and I was like, how much did you drink? And he's like, he was like doing a whole mayonnaise jar size a day.
Oh, wow.
I know. So I said, yeah, you're braver than me. And he laughed, and the doctor was like, well, I don't know. I've never seen that before.
Well, I learned when I was young that you don't just drink anything out of the bottle in grandma's refrigerator. 'Cause it was a hot summer day and I came inside and I was like, grab this big jug of orange juice. And I was like, no one's looking. I'll just drink it right out of the... And it was seal oil. Man, I took like 4 big drinks of that. And it didn't cool me off, I'll tell you that.
I thought you were going to say 24-hour yeast and orange juice, but I digress.
Okay. Okay. So, let me set the stage for this next part. We will keep it kind of short on the shorter side this time, but we do need to talk about this thing. So here's the context for our current conversation about the Tlingit classifier. So, when I was at the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, the campus was right next to downtown. Really big city, very big school. And sometimes I would walk at night, and I need to go get some food or go get some more coffee or tea. We'd have to take the bus home. And I'd always just be kind of cautious, just because, guy from small town in a big city. And nothing bad ever happened to me there. Like, I'd have some interesting encounters, and here is one of them. So I was walking past this building that was closed. And so basically the campus had a center, and if you were there late at night, there were some things open there, but the closer you got to the edge of the campus, everything was kind of shut down. So you'd be walking past these, it's very dark, And then you go to this off campus to this little place with restaurants and stuff. So all the restaurants and things and coffee shops were off campus, not far, just a few blocks from where we were. So I was kind of walking through one of these darker areas, and I was walking past this building with like a big kind of staircase that came down. And then two guys came out from one side of the staircase, and then two more guys came out behind me. And I thought for sure it was going to be some kind of mugging or something. And the guy goes, "Hey, let me tell you how to be saved by Jesus Christ." So I just said, man, you cannot do that. You can't just jump out at people at night. And then he told me, he's like, okay, I'm sorry. He says, but if you just say this 10-second prayer with me, you'll be saved and guaranteed a place. I said, that's it? He says, yeah. I said, what if I didn't, but what if I just came from murdering 10 people? It's like, it'll all be forgiven. I was like, get out of here. I gotta go get some food. So I just left. But if you guys were the crew that hides in the dark alley and comes out and says boo to someone and says, let me tell you about the Clinky classifier, and you only got a limited time to say it. Tell me everything about the Clinky classifier. I'm your captive audience now. Tell me everything you folks know about this thing.
Well, it exists.
It exists.
Well, I don't know if I'm using the right word. Is it stem or root? Whatever's in the little check changes, the same root changes meaning depending on the classifier?
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it comes right before the root, and if you change the classifier, then you're going to change the meaning of the verb somehow. Yeah. What else do we know about this thing?
Whether or not it's plus I or not tells you whether the event has actually taken place. And
Yes.
if it's taken place, it's plus I. And if it hasn't taken place, or anything in the future where you don't know if it's taken place, then it's minus I, or usually A.
Yes, so it goes to this plus I form if it has happened, or if we're saying if it does happen. So there is this potential form to say like it might happen, and that also is plus I. So is, or if we're saying if it is or if it does. So usually though we can just say if it goes plus I, then it has happened. That's what the I thing does in the classifier. Ya, di, si, zi, sh, dli, sh, j. They have all happened. That's right.
The zero classifier is the default. The sh often means the opposite, and the s and the hl are specifiers in different ways.
Yes, so there are these groups. The zero is by far the most common. So I would say yes. We think of that as a default. The SH is usually associated with unwanted things. The S and the L will do one of two things. They'll either put something into they'll either say, it's not just happening, but somebody made it happen. So Yannick, sick, áax'w, gave them a cold, got them sick. Yaké, good. áax'w, improved it, made it good. So it will, that's one thing, a big thing that both the S and the L do is to say, not just that way, somebody made it that way. The other thing the S classifier likes to do, it's like the category monster. This is your OCD tool right here. It says it's this type of thing, it's that type of thing, it's this type of thing. So it will classify things, which is why this whole thing is called a classifier. The L will often say, oh, it has one of those. Lisheidí, it has horns. Shikuku, it has ears. Shijini, it has hands. Shigushi, it has a dorsal fin. So Kushigus, the area it has clouds. So that's what they do as far as categories. So the 0, S, L, SH. What else in the nighttime classifier sermon?
I don't remember what the D does.
Okay. So if it's a group, it will not change groups. If it changes group, if it goes from 0 to L, 0 to SH, 0 to S, or anything like that, if it changes classifier group, that's a whole different verb. Yak-a and klesh-ushk-a are not the same verb. You could say yak-a, good, klesh-uk-a, not good, klesh-ushk-a, bad. So that's a verb. There's a few of them that has an opposite. It's an opposite verb, right? So it stays within the group, most commonly moving between minus I and plus I. The longer I teach this thing, I think it makes sense to just think of it. The 0 group classifier is 0. The S is sa, the L is shla, the SH is sha. That is the natural form of that classifier. You can add the I component to say, oops, it happened. We got to mark it as happening. Then it becomes ya, si, shle, sh. So it's like you turn on a light switch. Say, oh, turn the I component on. Otherwise, it just stays in that form. The last part is the D component. This will pop in for 2 main reasons. 1, middle voice. The subject is also the object. Ich setin, I see you. Shchod zetin, I see myself. Chwasaku or ich sechan, I love you. Whoosh tudzechan, we love each other. Whoosh and chush will kick that verb into plus D. There are a couple other things that will as well. So middle voice, which English doesn't have, other languages do, Tlingit does. The subject is also the object. And there are verbs that are just naturally plus D. Conversing, doing things like that, those are just plus D. The other reason that one verb might go plus D is you say there's an object, but we're booting the object out of there. Hey, what are you doing? Ya chatu. I am reading this book. Hey, what are you doing? Chadatu. I'm reading. I kick the object out of there to just focus on the action. Not every verb does that. There's a set of them that does. He says you can remove the object by turning on the D and it just ejects it. That's kind of everything. That's everything with the classifier. Thoughts, questions?
So can I just, so what you just said was the plus D, you can't have an object on all of the groups?
No, there's certain verbs where you can remove the object by changing
Okay.
it to plus D. There's a plus D version that kicks the object out. And not all of them do that. There's just a set of them that do. Reading, sewing. If you look at, there's a whole set of these action verbs in beginning Tlingit. And you see, like, when you go through that chapter and it says, watsíx, what are you doing? And you have all these different verbs you can respond with. All of those have no object. The reason why they have no object is so that you just focus on the subject. That way you don't have the third person A showing up and causing some confusion. We save that guy for later.
Doesn't the D always come in when the subject is fourth person human?
That's a great question. So there are times, so the fourth person, de, for all the zero classifiers, it must be minus D. So you can't go duda and you can't go dude. It will not allow it. Maybe Tlingit says, that sounds funny. No. All the non-zeros, and this is a very common pattern in Tlingit grammar, zeros and everything else, whether you're talking about the conjugation prefix or you're talking about the classifier, the S, L, and SH, fourth person, must be plus D. It has to be dus or dudze, dush or dudle, dush or dudje. You cannot, dusse, dusha, dusha, will not allow it. Let's see, I thought I had, hold on, one of these that I have examples of. Oh, here it is. So I'll show you one other thing with the classifier. So here's an example of how switching the classifier group can change the meaning of the verb. And not every verb has one of these for every one. Like, every root, some roots will have a 0 and an S. Others will have a 0 and an L. Some of them might only have an L. There's no zero group classifier for it. So this is the verb root teen, which means it has to do with sight, seeing something. So when you have a zero group, this is to see something generally or to be able to see it. So if I say Kayaaní, the only thing I am telling you is I see a dog. It's not my dog, it's not your dog, it's not that dog it's just like, hey, I see a dog. That's it. That's all I am communicating. Zero classifier, seeing the thing generally. But if it is that dog, that rascally dog that comes around and poops in my yard, digs up my garden, watsíx. The S classifier in this case says it's beholding a specific thing, right? So if I saw some killer whale in the channel, it's this one. If it's that same killer whale that I keep seeing, it's coming back, same one, S classifier. That's why to see someone, it's always áax'w. You are a specific thing. So that has to do with the category. The L classifier in this case has to do with agency. I don't just see that dog, I am watching that dog. And this could be I'm taking care of the dog. Or it could be I'm gonna watch it, tries to poop in my yard and go out and say something. Watsíx. I am watching that dog. Then we get to the SH, there's actually a positive version of this, which is to have sight, to be able to see. But the negative version, I have poor vision or I am blind. So that's what the classifier does. And so as we just continue to think about it, as we learn more about, the big thing is, I think, one of the biggest thing to focus on is when it's negative, putting it back over to here. And what does that do to the prefix? And we'll look at several examples. But if it's like se here, then it'll be klesh sa, chwa se ku, klesh chwa sa ku. So if it's negative, it needs to be on this side. Every future will be on this side, positive or negative, right? Ik kwas ye, ik kwasa teen. Ke haguch chatsin. We're gonna be strong. Any questions? Thoughts? Okay. Let's take our break. Come back at 10 till. We'll get back into the Táax'aa shkashnik. Yeshkashnik achtuasaku dat yejetuni. Kwalisaku. Táax'aa shkashnik klein. Sha dag edach. Tawéi. Kachwachash. We áax'w yach. Áax'w yes. Tawéi tsu kachwachash. Kachayegu kinki chakutye de yersene. Ya dasa. We lisheidí. Qatlan yuchatangi. Kachwa klesh ulti yuchatang choliyech adach. Tawéi dzísk'w. Hastuchi yes. Yata qanach uski at usk. Akakediq'w yes. Yata dat yejetune. Itcha yadi yachyti at. Yewa achtuasaku shuk at slingitch inachawe dat yuchgartutla at yashkashnik. Yide kakwanik dasa atuyeti. Áax'w ye dadune at. Áax'w ye dadune at. Yi ide kakwallanik. Slingitch inach. Yadu Qsacha Qwan. Qsacha Qwan. Gutil yudu asak. Yechwaji kleinach Qsacha Qwan. Kleshte katwe ku. Qsacha ku. Gwalre. Yegartu sa. Gwal atlein qutzati. Just take Qonate. Qonate ayahu. Hasakau klachek. Hachago chago. Pauhansa. Gutil yudu asak. Qutz. Gweish. Tikisani. Ketched. Táax'aa. Asaku away. Yak. Ye datine atqa yata. Yidat. Zayak. Zayagen. Yidat. Zayagen. Ashun. Awashun. Aquashun. Yatig. Wutig. Kekwatig. Yanagut. Wugut. Kukagut. Yeq yanakut. Yeq yanakut. Yeq uwakut. Yeq uwakut. Yeq kukakut. Yeq kukakut. Yeq uwakut. Tesh yeq wukut. Áax'w. 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 Austin. Austin. Ye agursatin. Ashakhisht. Ashawachich. Ashaqwachich. Ye naskit. Wudzigid. Yek qaskid. Ach ya anastain. Ach ausita. Ach agursata. Ya anarkuts. Aushakuts. Agursakuts. Awashat. Ke akquashat. Shoot at the ark. Shoot out the ark. Shoot the agurt the ark. Kadeya anachut. Cut our hut. Kade akquahut. Ash'w. Awsha'w. Ke agursha'w. Astacht. Ausitach. Ke agursatach. Ye away. Ye da dune at. Ya ye dat. Ye in kakwashani kyata. Dakha ye hánwu ti. Táax'aa ti haqusti ach. Qisachaqan qutzati wegao. Kleinach ka awatun. Tlech yeqwugud. Du keek du iqaqwashi. Tlech yeqwugud. Ya kiki a du hunchu hasqaqwashi. Qisachaqan awsatin. Qisachaqanch awe shawachich. Wudzigid. Adach awsatawe yeduk tlegweil 2 day. Awe aku awe atudach ke wugudi. Ashkuds yatik isani. Awe shat we qisachaqan qusi. Gan wugudi awe ashawachich. Shoot at the ark tle akat our hut. We qisachaqan ketli awe awsha'w. Kawayich yu ne awe Táax'aa wasati. Ajawe Táax'aa kukastach. Ye awe wishkashnik. Gwal de adat ye jitu ne. Tu ye jagachtu ne. Yasatki a. Aqaqan kananig guksa to ye ha would ye haji ne. Guksa ade ye jitu ne. Kunshish shukwaya kwashkatawusi ijiwu. Any questions?
I think I'm kind of struggling with this slide where the 2 day, maybe 2 slides back.
Oh, here?
in the story. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, so I think we've been translating this. I can't remember where we left off. But maybe if you folks recognize, we'll kind of try and go a little quickly through it until we feel like we're at the point where we kind of left off. And then we'll definitely get to that line tonight. Okay, I think we did all of these. Is that correct? Okay, so we'll do, just give me a quick translation. Kayaaní.
Up in the woods.
Uh-huh. Or in the interior. Yehawuti.
When we lived in the interior, when we were in the interior.
We were in the interior. Kayaaní hakusti ak.
our life was so difficult.
Our life was so hard there. I guess I should put that on there. And I'll probably say,
And so the there is at the end is at the
yes. And so this is plus k. And when you put it at the end of a sentence, it just feels better to go If it's in front of yewuti or yegati, it sometimes feels better to just go So a lot of times it'll switch to after we've named the place. Like we'll say, if we were somewhere down in Wrangell, Kitchanaaq, Ayehavuti, we were there. Kusachakwan kutzati wekao.
That time there was a cannibal.
Yeah, well. Cannibal existed at that time. At that time there was. Yep. Kainaka awatun.
one man went hunting.
Yeah, wow. And we're going to go through these kind of fast, but feel free to ask any questions if you got. Kashyekhugut.
Didn't come back.
He didn't come back. And so, or come back down, right? So the yek is coming towards the ocean or coming down off of a mountain. Dukik du iqaquashi.
He looked for his younger brother.
Yep. So he's the du, and he's the du in both cases. Dukik. So his younger brother. Well, actually, these are two different du. So Dukik. So the one person went hunting. That becomes the one we're talking about. His younger brother. Now it's the younger brother. Well, no, this is still the same person. Du iqaquashi. The du is the same person in here, sorry. The younger brother went searching for him. Kashyekhugut.
He didn't come back.
Did not come back. Yakikia duhunchu hasqaquashi.
The youngest brother went looking for his older brothers.
Yep. Yeah, sheesh. The youngest one went looking for his older brothers. Kusachakwan ausatin.
They saw a cannibal.
Yeah, So they saw the cannibal. Kusachakwanch shawachich.
The cannibal hit him on the head.
Yeah, And we all know what this CH is doing right here.
Repeatedly.
It would be if it was on verb.
So
It
he's
did.
the one doing the verb.
Yeah, it arrived at it. It's doing it.
Because it switched from he saw the cannibal to the cannibal struck.
Yeah, so when it's on a noun, it's saying this is the person that did it. And what you're going to see when we do the next level of this is some more advanced pronoun use. So basically, what a Tlingit story does, it starts to lay out who is the main character. Then as you're speaking Tlingit and listening to it, you just sort of assume that that's the person who does everything unless they tell you otherwise. But the CH can also say this is a subject switch. So now you need to know who did the thing. And then they'll show you another, then they'll switch back to whoever's doing something now. So once I saw this, I might assume the cannibal does everything else until they switch it back to someone. Okay. Watsíx.
He fell.
Yeah, wow. And let me separate these. Áax'w we yaduk claigweish today. This is maybe where we left off. Okay. So what about
Someone in a bag.
yes, in a bag? Absolutely. And this sentence is going to show us something about, what was I calling it the other day? But just like, you could do a lot, and in this case, you only need the verb once, and then it has it doing two different things, which is really neat. So what is táax'aa? Let's see, we're on slide 44. So we go here. This is táax'w, which can contract to áax'w. Ach and dach are the same thing.
Pick something up.
Yes, and this is wunayichat. So this is to pick up a dead thing, or something knocked unconscious, or a sleeping baby.
It's not gonna start moving around on you.
Yeah, and so babies get their own cake, because you could pick up a baby, and they usually, especially if you're good, they won't, if you're good at picking them up, they won't wake up. But like if you tried to pick up an adult, like they would wake up. Someone tried to say, what are you doing? You know, and so that's why we have the sleeping baby. So, and so again, with that CH, we can assume, like and Tlingit is really interesting because it just stops kind of marking things specifically. Watsíx, he fell. That's got to be the young boy because he just got clubbed in the head. Táax'aa. Now we know who picked up whom, right? We should be able to figure that out.
A name,
Huh.
adach, does that mean the thing from? Does that refer to picking something up?
Yeah, so whenever you have a picking up thing, you're going to have a dach or ach in front of it. And all that means is from it. So whether you're picking it up off the table, draw a card. Pick up the gambling paper, right? So that's what we say for like draw a card. Táax'aa we yaduk.
He picked up the young man.
And sometimes I put it as it, just because it's a monster. I think Kayaaní is a monster. I don't think it's saying cannibals in general. I think it is this monster that is named Gutish. It is this single thing. Its image is represented on some house posts among the lisheidí of Classifier. And then you'll see the mosquito used by a few other folks, but it really has a lot of, it's up there, right?
So this might be interrupting, but why do they have the monster on the house post? Is it a protection thing or just a storytelling?
So they also, that's the only place that I know of where they know what its name was too. Its name is Gutish, which means scar on the bottom, scar at the rump or the base. And so they know its name. And this house post is in a house called Ishkahit. And they used to periodically, maybe every year, pour a little bit of hooligan oil at the corner of its mouth to say, don't come back and eat us. We'll feed you. So yeah, they are kind of scared of it, but then they also use it, and they're sort of the caretakers of it. They're the only ones that I know of that claim it as a crest. And now we get cle, gweith, tude.
Just into a bag.
Yeah, then. So cle is then. And you'll see it used as a, and sometimes you'll notice that cle is being used several times in a sentence. So if you're sort of trying to sequence some actions, that's what this word does. And you don't need a verb twice. And this, I think this is the same with English. So you'd say, they picked it up and put it in a bag. Well, I guess you have put, right? So I guess tlingit doesn't need that second verb. It picked up the young man and put him in a bag. Any questions about that? So again, like sometimes your brain has to do a little bit of that work because it kind of expects something else to be there, but it's just, as far as the way tlingit works, it just makes sense. Because like then into a bag? What into a bag? Well, of course it's the boy. The boy goes into the bag. Awa aku aaq, awa atudach kewugudi.
The áax'w is the trying verb.
So
he tried to get through something.
atudach. So what is the to part? So we have today, and now we have tudach.
That we get out, like the other direction?
Yes, to get out. And so kewugudi is to walk up. So when you combine this, you say, one is wugudi is linked to this verb. So he tries to get out of the bag. And so this is a cut down version. In the big version, it does some stuff to switch it back to the boy. Like it switches him. Because what Tlingit does is here's who's doing the thing. Now here's who's doing the thing. Now back to this person doing the thing. And you're going to see a pronoun that says the one we've been talking about or the main character. I don't think we've seen that yet. It's in the bigger version, which we'll do after we're done with this one, if we feel like it. And this is some things where like, I might make a adjustment on here because he tries to get out of it. This is in the imperfective. He's doing it right now. Tlingit also switches to the imperfective to show either a change of scene or to sometimes say there's this sense of immediacy going on right here. So it's just something worth paying attention to. English does the same thing, right? And same with English does this other thing. The tense that you use to tell a story can tell you what kind of story it is. right? So for example, if I say a porcupine walked into a bar, that's usually a story. But if I say a porcupine walks into a bar, that's a joke, right? So these things are sort of set up in languages to do this kind of stuff. Áax'w Kayaaní.
He broke the strings into little strings, little bits.
Well, they're just strings. Kayaaní is just strings. Tik is rope. Kayaaní is strings.
Oh, so they go together, the two.
Yep. And so again, this is in the imperfective, right? So that's imperfective, this is imperfective. He is breaking these strings. Awashat b'kusachakon kutsi.
He picked up the cannibals club.
Yeah, he grabbed the cannibal's club. So awashat, going back, it's up here. It's to grab something or to catch something. Grab it or to catch it. There is a different verb for like holding on to something, but he grabbed the cannibal's club. Last slide of the story. Jánwu ashawachich.
He went outside and hit it over the head.
Yeah, well, so like in the bigger version, it's going to show you some things to place, like this is the sort of, in the context of the story, the bag is outside of the house. The boy breaks the strings and gets out. Then he gets the cannibal's club and waits outside for it to emerge. When it emerges, jánwu it comes out. When it comes outside, he clubs it on the head.
So how do we know that the wugudi is referring to the cannibal?
It's kind of like, this is the problem like with my attempt to cut the story down, is there's a whole bunch of lines in between that talk about he waits outside by the entrance, and just when he sees its head poke out, it does a lot of that stuff, but I try to get it down to a 30-sentence story.
Good name. If you're going to use these as a teaching tool, it would be helpful to have a few carefully chosen illustrations, one of which is the cannibal's house and the sack outside, because that would clarify this whole context. Because if you know that the cannibal left him and went inside, then jánwu must mean the cannibal coming out.
Right.
But I think in a lot of these stories, the illustrations would depend on the version of the story, but I think that'd be really helpful.
I think it's saying like this, the information is going to change a whole lot, but then some things will be cut. So then we'll just add more illustrations as we go in.
As the story gets, as there's less shingit, I think there need to be more pictures.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay. So yeah, I think carefully selected images so that we can put all of that into there, because when you get the full Zuboffs, he tells you all of this stuff, like at least most of it. Yeah, and sheesh.
Well, for a future if you did have some of those images for the key points, you could use that. This would be way in the future for me, but you could use those images to tell the story. You could retell with just the images.
Okay.
Well, that's actually a good teaching tool, because I'm not sure I'm quite there yet. But if you've done this with us before, you've shown a series of images and then tried to get us to tell the story that went along with them.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
On the other hand, too, it's hard for me when I was writing to keep the subject out of there and keep repeating who it was. So
Okay. Yeah, right? Because once you
streamline it.
once you get it, then you just switch to third person the whole time. Right? And then so this is one where you could say jánwu. And then you could say, so this would be one way to sort of put it all together. So you could say jánwu áax'w shawachich. So that would sort of do a little bit more work to sort of clarify who's doing what and not get too complicated.
I like the simpler version with a picture.
Okay. I'll work on the picture. Okay. Shoot at the arc, a cut our hut.
He made a fire is the first part.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yeah, well. And we'll go up here to our
On
Burn.
it.
sorry, a cut our hut.
he pulled him, he drug
Pulled it.
him.
Yeah, well. Oh, let me copy these. He builds a fire, then dragged it onto it. With
So is the onto is the hut, the cut.
a cut. And then this verb, if this verb changed, like a cut would zagit, he fell onto it. Well, it'd be a cut would zagit. A cut tawéi, he threw it on. He threw the person onto there. A cut uwakaa, he walked up onto it. Right. So that a cut is going to be onto it. Yeah. áax'w.
That cannibal burned to ash.
Well, there, yeah, it did burn to ash, but then this is talking about something else as well.
So is this the blow verb?
Yeah, well. áax'w.
Cannibal's ashes.
And this is, I wasn't sure how to illustrate this because it's actually not blowing something out, which has a different verb. It's to blow on something. I guess what, like hot food or something? What should I put on there? What do you blow on? I don't know.
Something hot.
Do you blow on soup?
I guess like, okay, let me make a
On
note.
your spoon on soup, maybe? I don't know.
Rising.
Okay. Okay. Just a note for my, let me think about it. He blew on, oops, the ashes of the cannibal. And we'll go like this. Kayaaní uwakaa Táax'aa.
Became a mosquito.
That's that part. What about Kayaaní? Yánwu.
Let's say uwakaa.
So this one is sometimes Kayaayikt or Kayaayik or Kayaayich or Kayaayich. And it means into space or into the air. In this case, it's into the air. Went into the air and became mosquitoes. Let me fix this. Oops.
And so is it mosquitoes because of the on the end? Plural?
No, that's a really good question. So Táax'aa with the T could mean it became a single mosquito. But this is one where things don't always have to pluralize. You could say Táax'aa with the T, and that would specifically say it became mosquitoes, plural. But I think usually the story is, because there's some things when you talk about, you just say Táax'aa, like, they're going to start popping up all over the place pretty soon around here. And so if you said something like Táax'aa, you're not talking about a single one, usually. So there are some things that just sort of, they tend to just move in groups. Tawéi Táax'aa chuchas tucht.
That's one.
And that is because
Because of that.
of that.
And so tawéi could be because of that or that is why. Either one.
Mosquitoes bite people.
Mosquitoes bite people. Yeah, what? That's it. That's the whole story. All done. We have accomplished it, and we will, when you folks, probably next Thursday, well, we'll see how everybody feels. So you guys will have class with Nawea on Tuesday. I'll be here on Thursday to do a bit more grammar stuff.
Oh, nay,
Huh.
we're not having the super class on
Oh, wait, we have a super class. Never mind. Gonna change. Didn't we just decide that? Okay. Yeah, so next week, learning from Nawea, super class. Probably the week after that, we might take a look at what the next stage up of this same story is, so we can just sort of, then we've got a bunch of those details in our mind already. So we'll be looking for those things. And that one, the idea is this is sort of just stepping up, and then we can also, at some point, and you can always do this, you can read the full version and you can listen to it. And so it's in Hashukah by the Dowenhauers. We have a retyped version of the whole thing, which I'll put up at some point. I guess we're still doing the big reveal of the sentences, so I'm not ready to put the whole thing up yet. But I guess an answer key doesn't hurt too bad. We'll see. Okay, thoughts or questions before we go? Sheesh, folks. Excellent work. Good job getting through that story. You got all the pieces. There's big chunky things in here. So we're just going to level up a little bit, but we'll give it a week.
Before you go, when you return, what days are your office hours?
I have them Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 5, but I can always set up other times too.
Okay, great.
Or usually about 4:15 to 5:15, actually.
I
Okay, perfect.
tried that link on the website for the class notes from last class.
Oh, okay. Not the. I looked at the chat. Hold on.
There's some reason it just says I need access. And I think just this file sharing or something, but
I'll go adjust those settings right now.
oh,
Gee.
sheesh.
Je wish Steve.